Any specific downward trends in any of these areas thought that are of real concern, or?
I can't say that anybody has depicted a downward trend. Any biologist has come up in the last decade and said, man, this is just continually downward. We seem to have ups and downs, and is essentially for the last decade or more, population's kind of just going up and down.
Yeah, general upward trends?
Not general. They're up and down. The two that have gone up in the last decade and gone up from the 90s were area 10 and 7 or have looked pretty well lately. We've seen some pretty good numbers in those areas, and there's others. Area 4 has I wouldn't call them a long-term upward trend. It's a short-term. It's within 5 years. They've been up for 5 years, and that's kind of what we normally see is herds go up for 3 to 5 years, and then they stabilize or start going down. It just depends. But those three we've seen some upward trends in.
This graph like that would show us like if we got in the last 3 years if we've got a downward trend, then I think we as a commission should know that.
We could put the spring fawn ratios and the population numbers on the same graph, and of course they would mimic each other. We've done that before, but they normally, if the fawns are going up, the population's going up, so they mimic each other. But we could do that.
That'd help with the county boards too, how they want to recommend deer for their area.
Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Larry, when you have I'll just use a round number like 10% drop from the fall to the spring, do you use that same percentage, more or less, for your quota recommendations?
Like a 10% drop in a fawn ratio?
Right.
Not really, because you could start with 150 fawns in the fall if you didn't have any mortality, and end up at 40 fawns in the spring, and you might have a lot of mortality in the summer and start in the fall with only 60 or 70 fawns and still end up with 40. So if you end up, what really matters is what you end up with in the spring, what made it through the year. The overwinter fawn loss, the only other time that's of concern is if you have a huge overwinter fawn loss, like you went from, say, you had 75 fawns that looked pretty good in November, and then in the spring it dropped all the way to like 10 or 15 fawns, and you had that huge of a loss of fawns. That tells you had a really bad winter. And if you had that bad of a winter, then you probably lost adults. And at that point, if we saw that kind of a fawn loss, we'd be looking at increasing the mortality rates in the model for adults as well as the fawns that we measured. And that population would then be decreased quite a bit, and that quota recommendation would also be decreased. You would have seen that in the 92-93 winter. We had a huge winter then, huge losses. We even went out on the ground and documented carcasses and things like that. And in those years, Nevada, drastically, we reduced our population estimates, our quota recommendations. And the proof of the pudding is that if you look at 92-93 winter in the western United States, it happened throughout the western United States. And all the states around us had big deer die-offs, but the only ones that really picked it up was Nevada. And you can kind of tell that because there were several directors that got fired in the western states, but ours didn't, because we knew what happened. And it's just because we get to fly all of our areas. A lot of these states will fly sample areas in the state, and depending on what you fly, you may or may not pick up an overall statewide die-off. But because we fly almost every area in the state, we saw the low fawn rates and dead deer on the ground and everything else statewide. So we were able to pick up on that mortality right away and react. So that's kind of the difference with Nevada, is that we do those spring flights almost everywhere. And so that's a luxury that a lot of western states don't have. So we're pretty lucky and pretty confident that we normally pick up on die-offs within 1 or 2 years at least, and able to react to that.
Mr. Vice Chairman?
An additional question. I agree. I think, we used to fly fall flights two times a year. I think those are critical as far as getting that. But if you have a low fawn survival in the fall, that's almost exclusively due to predators, isn't that?
There's a good chance that's a big share of it. And the other thing could be just the body condition of the does. If they came out of the previous winter in poor condition because it was a tough winter, then their body's not in that great a shape, and they might not produce as thrifty of fawns, and so the fawns aren't as healthy to start with, and then they're more susceptible to predation, but other things, they can get caught in things and hung up in fences and all kinds of things, and they can get disease easier if they're not a strong fawn. So they can catch things and die. So there's lots of factors that kill them, but predation is a big factor, and they're especially with weaker fawns. You bet.
Commissioner Macbeth, do you have any questions?
No questions here.
Down here, questions? Mr. Kevin?
Just more of a philosophical thing, Larry, but I think in one of your other presentations you mentioned, with the budget cuts, we were starting to, we cut out most of the fall. And I'm just wondering if we can, with the budget cuts and the state of the economy, are we going to be able to sustain these spring flights at an adequate level? Because that's a big concern that we've already cut. To me, that it seems like it's a big concern to the entire program that we've already cut the fall, and everything is continuing to be cut. Are we okay budget-wise with spring cuts? It's a little off of the subject, but
No, that's okay.
just a general answer would be.
Yeah, really, because we know that those spring flights are so critical for us to know what the recruitment rate is, that really has been our major emphasis in game division, is to make sure that we at least get those flights done. That's almost like a minimum that we feel we need in order to make that assessment. And we've committed to, if we have to, drop other things at the current time to maintain those spring critical flights so we can keep tabs on all of our deer herds. And then what we're trying to do with the fall fawn rate, or with the fall flights, is we're trying to get flights in areas every 3 to 5 years, just as a check of those buck ratios if we can, because obviously the buck ratio is important, and the model will predict it for us, but it's nice to collect real data and see if indeed that what's being predicted in the model is we can measure on the ground, and that. So we are trying to do fall flights, but we're just not doing them as much, and they're not as critical now because, quite frankly, with those high buck ratios, there isn't much concern there, and with the quotas that we've instituted over the last decade or more, they're conservative, based on the recruitment rates. We're just not throwing out tons and tons of tags. And so we know that we're not impacting our populations, and we're not impacting those buck ratios much. And the other place that we can tell if those buck ratios are still strong is in the point class of the harvest. And when you look at the numbers of 4 points in Nevada's harvest, we have some really good numbers. In the last 2 years, we had 46% of all the harvest. 2 years ago, 46% of all the bucks killed were 4 point plus. And last year, I think it was 41 or 42. So, and historically, I went through a lot of books the other day real quickly, and I was just doing those calculations. And a lot of the years, we seem to average around 35 bucks. 35% of the harvest in Nevada was 4 point or better. In the last few years, since about 2005, there's only been 1 year under 40. The rest have been 40 to 46. So we've got good representation of mature bucks in the harvest. So that's another place we look at it.
All right, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Another comment. Yeah, but I agree with you. Our point class is going down, and this is where I'm going to disagree. You guys, when someone, a hunter return card, you're taking the information from, and when the hunter return card says 1,000 points or 100 points, the people that put those in, you've instructed systems consultant to put it as 6 points or more, and that's distorting the data, I think,
Well, I guess you'd have to look at the number of those, how many people are actually doing something like that.
Yeah, I don't know how many people are doing that, but are we getting the exact point class, what hunters are really reporting? How accurate is the data that we're getting?
Well, all I can say is that Nevada has some of the best hunter return data in the country, because we have mandatory return policy that you have to turn it in or you can't apply or you get a fine. A lot of states are still doing phone questionnaires, 10%. We used to do 10% questionnaires. only sample 10% of your hunters. We get 90+% return. And so we did some checking a few years ago. Gosh, I guess it was back in the late 80s or 90s when we went out in the field and we checked people and we wrote down what they had harvested, and then we compared that to what they reported. And we found, pretty good reporting. What we did find is some people thought that by reporting if they got one and where they got one, they were giving away their secret place. So they would get a deer, and we might check them in the field, but they wouldn't report they got a deer. But then we had other people but that was about 10%. And then we had another 10% that didn't get a deer, but ended up reporting they did get one. And so they kind of canceled each other out. So there's always some of that in noise in any data you collect. But, if the majority of the hunters are providing good data, then it's pretty strong. And it shouldn't suddenly change. That if there's been people giving us bogus data, it should be, if it's 1% or whatever percent it is, it should be the same for the whole time, forever. Why would it change suddenly? Why would suddenly people want to lie more than they used to, or something like that? So that's what you look at. And so you look at that long-term trend in that point class.
Okay.
Commissioner Pearl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Larry, what would it tell you if you looked at an area that perhaps has the retention or recruitment rate on fawns, but the harvest data is low? Your surveys, your modeling shows decent ratio numbers, but the harvest isn't going along with that. What do you do?
Well, you have to look at how long that might be occurring. If it's a 1 year blip, that could just be an opening weekend storm. We've seen that happen where a big chunk of your deer are killed opening weekend, and we've seen times when a snowstorm hits and everybody's can't get around and they're stuck and they're going into town and having breakfast because it's not worth, they can't get around. We'll see hunter success drop quite a bit that year and maybe for the whole season because of that. And so if that's all it is, then you don't worry about it. But if it's a trend, like you're seeing several years in a row where the hunter success has gone way down, then you've got to start asking what else is going on and what might be wrong. So we try to look at things and not react just from 1 year, because you've got to see a trend. You've got to see if there's something to it, not because you can have a lot of things, weather and things, for a 1 year trend.
All right. Anything else on number 13? We'll move on to number 14. All right. Review.
Hey, are you not going to take any public comment?
It's just informational.
I'm sorry, from Elko, are you going to take any public comment on that?
Nope. As we stated earlier, we take public comment on action items. Everything else is public comment period. Start of the meeting. Stated that explicitly. And it's in writing. All right, number 14, review of the Ruby Mountain Research Project. Big Game Chief Gilbertson, informational. Let's see, you gave us a copy of this contract. Project total costs $762,420. Licenses $44,605. Cash donations, what were those? We know $141,000 in donations. We got some generous folks.
Where'd that come?
Yeah, this is a pretty normal grant request that we submit each year for any of our projects. Whether it's this one's called Mule Deer Research. We have our normal mule deer survey and inventory and management. We have upland game survey and inventory and management, migratory waterfowl. We have to submit one of these for each one of those major projects or programs that we are running. And so this is pretty typical, and you get to the budget thing in the back, and it shows you our expectations and what we hope to spend for the year, and how much of it is state shared, which is tag and license fees. And then Game Division actually gets probably more cash donations than any other division. because we have a lot of groups that are supportive and are willing to provide not only cash but in-kind match there. You see that in-kind match, that's volunteers and labor. And so we build these budgets based on that. And heritage money can be part of it. You can actually use heritage, if you have a heritage project that is part of this research, that heritage money is part of this cash donation or in-kind match dollars. It can be used in there to draw those federal shares. So in this case, we've identified $141,000 that we may need to get all the work done. The final draw at the end of the year, that $762,000, the total amount, is really dependent on if everything you predict in here happens and costs what you thought it cost. You know, of course, these are all predictions before you do them, and they include things like the cost of net gunning animals and putting radio collars on, the cost of those radio collars, and a lot of other things. Sometimes those prices go up and down. There's a lot of things that vary, and so it may not come out to that amount. But anyway, in this particular one, we're predicting that we may need up to $141,000. At the current time, what I can tell you that we have checks that we've received to help pay for this, those who wanted to contribute. So far, we have NBU's contributed $50,000. Marigold Mine has contributed $15,000, and Newmont Gold Mine has contributed $15,000. A couple of the mines are interested in some of this radio tracking work we're doing because of some of the movements in and around their actual mining activities, and so they're vested in this and want to see what's going on with the deer movements and what impacts their mine may or may not have on it. So they're willing to contribute to help figure that out. So the mines are usually big in helping us with this, and then NBU and other groups usually are the ones that provide the cash donations. So right now, that's only $80,000 that we've got checked so far. So what we'll do is, as we go through this project and we're getting closer to the end of the year, we'll see if we need more money. We may go out and solicit more money. We also will see what other kind of matches are out there, like where we're doing heritage projects. And if all of the money that we get for heritage, we do a trapping and transplanting project. And some of this, because some of this research is actually trapping and transplanting, so some of it may be shared with that. You know, the actual marking of animals and tracking them and that kind of thing is trapping and transplanting. So we're not sure we'll need that entire $141,000 at this point.
I got a couple overall questions here. Clarify what's going on. One is timeline. What do we have for timeline? Talked about that in here, but what this is going to be done this year as it states in here? Or?
Some of it has already started, and we've got radio collars on a large number of deer already. We did most of the marking in December, and I don't know if it's some in January, but we did most of it already as far as getting the radio collars attached. But it's projected to continue for several years, and we're getting more collars to replace collars and to add additional collars this coming year. So it's a project that we intend to do for 3 to 5 years at least to collect, and depending on where and what success and what we're learning. If we need to continue it longer, we will, or if you collect enough data and you're satisfied, you can shorten it and that kind of thing. But we do expect them to go on for.
Okay, it says on here June. Project duration ends June 30th. But
yeah, do we have to do one of these each year?
That's we'll spend somewhere in that's the projection to spend by June 30th this year.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
These are individual annual grants, and we do one of these each year. So. And
results from this project, or the first year of this project, will be out projected approximately.
We have to write a federal aid report. Every year they're due by the end of the federal fiscal, which is September 30th. So we write reports on all of our projects by then. One of the reports we're writing right now that we mentioned earlier was the book we put out for the deer, for the big game quota meeting. And that's one of our job progress reports. That has all the information that we've done for survey and inventory for mule deer and what's been going on in that grant, which is a different one than this, but that's an example of a job progress report. And you've probably all seen the big game trapping and transplanting report that we do. That's another job progress report that reports everywhere we trap things, what we trapped, where we moved it. If we went out of state and got animals, we do that kind of a report for every one of these projects, and they are due by the end of September. If you're late and you can't quite get it done, sometimes they'll give us an extension for 6 weeks or something, but in the fall sometime we get all these reports done. So the progress report for this will also be written.
As the commission probably be interested in seeing that when it comes out. There's one more thing, I'll ask the commission some other questions. One is on, well, here it marks as page 23 of 26. Is the map down there about locations? I'm assuming that that's not all black on the original. Just generally locations, you could give us a snapshot?
Right now, we've marked deer in the Virginia range, and then over in area 10 and in area 15, we've put radio collars in those areas so far.
And whereabouts in 15? I mean, which mountain range? The Simpson Park range, or?
I'm trying to think where
three
Jeremy
mountain
put them on. I'm not sure where Jeremy decided he wanted to go with that. And
Okay.
I think we did put some down in the Simpson Parks and North Toyabe's, I believe. But no, we must have put some on the Shoshone. I think he scattered them out throughout the area because he's trying to pick up information for the whole area.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Pearl, Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Nick?
When you say the Virginia range, I assume you're talking about area 022?
Right, just up north of town here.
Okay, let me ask you this question then. What impact will this study, assuming that it takes the 3 to 5 years overall study period, what effect will it have on ongoing programs such as our $3 predator fees, which have been allocated to various projects throughout the state, including in some of these areas?
Well, we will continue to do predator projects wherever biologists identify a need for them to be done. For instance, even though we marked deer in the rubies, we still are concerned about the bighorn sheep in the rubies. And if Caleb tells us that find some lions that are in the area around those bighorn wintering or whatever, we'll still go in and remove those because that's pretty critical. So I don't think it'll have a huge impact. We'll still be doing predator control where biologists feel they need it done, and we'll still be doing predator control in relation to big game trapping and transplanting, places where we've put animals or we're going to put animals, so we'll still continue to do that.
I would like to, as you apparently are going to be adding areas to what you just described, that we be kept advised of what those areas are, because as been pointed out, we have there's a rather large predator program or predator elimination deal going on in 015, and I'm not sure I'd want to see that interfered with as long as they were having results that would be favorable to the population there.
Yep.
All right. Go ahead, and then we'll have Commissioner Howell.
I had a couple questions here. First of all, we got page 19 to 26, and could we get the first 19 pages of this study?
Yeah, the rest of the pages would be just all of the grants that the department submits for game division.
Okay,
Sure,
so this
that's
is
what it is.
this is a total page of this grant?
Yeah, this is
Okay.
just this particular grant,
Okay,
but
the
like,
other-
if you
the other
wanted the
question I
waterfowl
had is,
upland game.
As you know, with all research, the devil's in the detail. And so I had a lot of questions here on this here. How many deer in each area have been collared? Is this a multi-year study? And I'd like to know the sample size and the study area selected, because if you only do 5 deer, that's not going to be significant. And then Well, start with those questions. Do we have those answers? I mean, how many areas and the sample size, and how many in each area are going to be collared? And
I don't have the exact sample sizes with me today, and we can get those for you, but I do know that we are marking like 150 animals in an area, which is something we've never done before. In the past, it has been small numbers like 5 and 10 and 15.
could you get that to us?
Sure.
I'd like to
Yeah.
know
We
more
can.
about this because, like I say, the devil's in the detail with this research, and this is a multi-year study, not just the one we finished in September.
Yeah.
And when it was testified last time at the commission, they said they stopped the predation in the rubies because it was a study area, and I'm really concerned if they, like Commissioner Capurro said, if they expand this into some areas that we want to go protect our deer in with some predator projects, or recommend some, and then you got a research project going in, it's going to mess up your data. That's what was testified by the lady that was in charge of it, and that would concern us.
Yeah, right. We didn't really stop any predator control in Area 10 because Project 17 has come to an end. The predator control project we had in Area 10 came to an end. But we had some suggestions to do more predator control in Area 10. We had requests by individuals who wanted to do it. And our response to that was that because of the study, we wouldn't want to, that would be one reason we wouldn't want to right now. If we went out and saw that there was actual predation happening that was of a concern to the biologists at a population level, we would go in anyway if we found data.
Won't wait for the sheep herders.
Yeah, if we found data that showed, that something was removing all of our mule deer in Area 10 and we saw it happening, we'd go in and address that issue.
No, I think that this type of project is great. This is the type of projects you need for our mule deer, and I'm glad to see you're going forward with something like this, but, I still have questions on it. Do you have a database to start this, or how does UNR going to analyze the data?
Well, we can have Dr. Kelly Stewart and Tony and whoever come and give you all the answers to the details of the study if you'd like.
But those are some concerns I have, but where the database is going to come from, because I'm not sure they got them.
Sure. Well, we can have those people come and answer those specifics for you if you'd like.
And maybe when you have these results out this September or something, maybe?
Yeah, when we do the preliminary report, of course, it will say how many animals we marked and what happened to the animals that we marked that we've measured so far, and how many were taken by predators and whatever else we find out about them. We're doing follow-ups on mortalities and everything else.
When you get a collar that doesn't transmit it, you should immediately jump on it and look for holes in the teeth marks in the collar, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, let's check on the, Commissioner Macbeth, did you have something on the phone?
Nothing here.
Okay, Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, Vice Chair Lent asked some of the questions I had. This, the top of the page, it said the project duration, July 1st, 2010 to June 30th, 2011. Does that just reflect the federal money?
Right. Every one of these grants that we do, that's the same. That's our fiscal year, July 1st through June 30. So every one of Game Division's projects are designed that way when we only put in for a one-year grant. And so we do one of these grants every year. This same grant will be redone and resubmitted again this July for the next year.
Because as Vice Chair Lent said that at the last meeting, the young lady that was given the presentation on a separate study, I assume, and the rubies, right? This is not the same study.
The rubies is part of this. Yeah. This is a statewide study. We're doing it in 3 different areas right now, but
So she was giving just the study in the rubies. That's her portion of it, is that?
She actually is supervising some students that are working in more than one area.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she's involved with more than just the rubies.
Because I had made some calls and about doing some predator work when we had a good snow and it looked like an opportune time, and and I was told that because of this study, we couldn't get in there.
Right, that was one of the justifications for not doing predator control, but the other is, we also want to see some evidence in places that, whether it's coyotes or lions or whatever, that they're actually impacting, if it's deer, we want to see the evidence of that. And if somebody's is finding a lot of lion kills or something, or coyotes working on wintering deer in deep snow or something like that, and point it out to us, or our biologist finds it, and we go out and see it, then that's full justification to go in and do something on a spot right away like that. But so that's what we're looking for, is the, you know, the need to do it, to justify it, so that we can go do it.
Thank you. All right, anything further on item 14? Commissioner Pearl.
Well, just to follow up, and that is that, but with respect to those projects, there comes issues in which, say, a cattle or a sheep rancher starts losing animals to predation, whether it's coyotes or lions or what it might be. He's going to call in Wildlife Services, and they're going to go in, and that's going to have some effect, because not only is it protecting his sheep or his cattle, it's going to be a protection for the animals, for wild animals. So you're going to get some of that anyway,
Sure.
whether you try to control it or not.
Right, and we consider that just the normal situation out there. That's normal, that we have various predator control activities that occur statewide all the time because of livestock issues, and that's just part of what's out there. That's the standard, so that's okay, that's fine. We just didn't want to do over and above extra predator control right on the top end of one of these studies. Now, down the road, in a few years, if a lot of these radio callers, we find mortalities, and a big percentage of them are being killed by coyotes or by lions, and it shows us the need, then that'll be justification to go into that area and actually do more, do that kind of control, because we've justified it and seen it with the radio caller. So that's hopefully what we'll learn, is what we need to do out there with this study.
All right, so no further on item 14, we'll take 10.